Red Bull had a really tough weekend after doing so well for a long time. Max Verstappen had to quit the race because his car broke down. But here's the crazy part. Even if Max had stayed in the race, the Ferrari cars were going so fast that they probably would have beaten him anyway. So now everyone's wondering if the next races will be more exciting, and what Ferrari has planned for their next big upgrade at their home race, even though the first two races made it look like Red Bull would win everything again this year. It seems like Ferrari might have something to say about that. Max had problems with his brakes, which isn't the end of the world, but it was serious enough that his car had to stop racing. This gave his teammate Perez a chance to maybe win, since Perez was clearly the second fastest driver in the first two races. But guess what? Perez only finished fifth in the race and wasn't even close to fighting with the McLaren drivers, let alone the super-fast Ferraris up front. When people asked Perez about this, the Mexican driver said that even if Max hadn't quit the race, it wouldn't have changed how things ended. He said, "As a team, we just didn't have the speed today. We didn't have the speed all weekend long. We were already having trouble since Friday, and we never figured out how to manage our tires properly. I think we just need to understand what went wrong and make sure we can get better. We already saw last year at tracks like this one in Vegas, tracks where you can't push the front tires too hard, that Ferrari was much stronger than Red Bull, so Ferrari would have won even if Max hadn't quit the race." Absolutely yes, not just Perez, but even his teammate thinks that if Max hadn't quit and the DRS wing was wide open from the second lap, we would have had a much closer and more exciting race than we're used to seeing. He felt like Red Bull had the speed, but the RB20 car's dominance would have been seriously challenged. Talking more about this, he went on to say, "It was a really good race. I felt really good out there. I'm very happy and very proud of the team and happy to get a 1-2 finish with Charles here. I felt like I could keep up with Max on the first lap and try to use the DRS to help me pass him. The DRS around here is super powerful." Then Max lost control of his car in turn 3 and there was my chance to get close and try to pass him. And then as soon as he was behind me, I think he started having trouble with his brakes, and that was it for him. It's too bad because we would have had, I think, a very good fight for first place today, but I'm happy to take the win. Max has had plenty of wins, so I'm happy to be back here. Now, the problem with Red Bull is exactly what Ferrari has and what the Red Bull team wishes they could have if these difficult times happen more often. Two very strong drivers that they can count on. The reality in Melbourne is that Perez wasn't even close to the top 3 drivers. While that was something we got used to seeing in the 2023 season, it was his teammate Max up front who brought the big points for the team. Perez did get some damage to his car when trying to pass Alonso, which made his car lose some downforce because the floor got messed up. This is something team boss Christian Horner talked about. Finishing 40 seconds behind the leaders is just way too much for a car that used to dominate the first 2 races so easily. On top of that, Max talked about what happened and how it doesn't create too much drama for him. But still, it's something that should be fixed right away, and that's why his reaction when talking to his engineer was a bit angrier than expected. You could say it was just Max being Max in his natural state. Even if the problem had stayed on the car and he would have built a 20-second lead with it, I'm sure we would have heard a lot of complaints from him about it. So this angry conversation by itself isn't enough to make people talk about potential trouble in Red Bull and how the team started to fall apart after a problem caused Max's car to fail. However, it's pretty clear that the SF24 Ferrari is much closer to Red Bull's speed, and they are far away from being finished with their 2024 improvements. On top of that, Max took a second engine in Melbourne, and before that in Jeddah, he took a new exhaust system. The exhaust system has 8 pieces that you're allowed to change. But once you change an entire engine, you change the exhaust system with it too. Even though it's clear that Max's engine didn't get damaged and could be used in the next races too, the fact that the Dutch driver took it at the 3rd race of the season does make people wonder about how reliable the car really is. But Max denied these worries as he explained why his team decided to take a new engine for the rest of the weekend. He added, "During practice I ran over a curb. The mechanics wanted to change the engine just to be sure. We could have kept driving with the other engine, but they wanted the new one just to be sure. Talking about quitting the race, Max said that the problem needs to be fixed as soon as possible and won. Like this shouldn't happen to them anytime soon, he added. I'm disappointed with not being able to finish the race because I think we would have had a good shot at winning. The car felt quite nice on the laps to the starting grid. I felt confident and made a good improvement compared to what I felt in the long runs when we practiced. But yeah, there are some things you cannot control. We had a lot of good races in a row, a lot of good reliability, and I knew that the day would come when you would end up having to quit a race. Unfortunately, that day was today. Of course, you never like to see it happen to your team. But that is in the past, and now it's more important that we understand why it happened. Regardless. This gives the Red Bull team only one more engine available for the rest of the season before they get penalties, if they have to take new engines. While this didn't hurt Max's chances in previous years, it could be a different story in 2024. This is because the McLarens, who people thought would struggle in Melbourne because their DRS doesn't work well and they have top speed problems, as well as the Ferraris who are breathing down Red Bull's necks, is the reality we're living in right now. The Ferrari team plans to bring a lot of upgrades to Imola, which is pretty much their home race after Monaco. It seems like they have a lot of confidence that this race will have a very strong influence on where the team will continue to move forward. Most people believe that Ferrari is close, but they do need that one extra step to be on the same level as Max. Because if we're being honest, Perez is not really in the mix of winning races the way he's driving right now, at least if we judge from the Melbourne race so his seat would be questioned yet again. And even though we shouldn't start another round of guessing games, the main candidate to replace him, Daniel Ricciardo, isn't doing the best work right now in the Racing Bulls team. He's being completely beaten by Tsunoda, which spells a bit of bad news for Red Bull's future if they have to think about the second seat, or even more scary if Max decides to leave in some wildly twisted scenario. With this in mind, there is a serious threat that Red Bull might face from Ferrari even before Imola, because they plan to bring their controversial design involving the cooling inlets around the side pod area. This would remind us a lot about the design that the W33 and the W14's original versions had in the past. But with Red Bull being forced to chase a new direction because they are vulnerable if they stayed with the same design, and with Ferrari as well as McLaren having made their platform solid from last year and now being eager to add upgrades, to see whether they can close the gap to the Red Bull team, the rest of the 2024 season could give us a lot to think about. More importantly, it could bring a lot of interesting racing moments that could spice up the championship battle. Do you think that Ferrari has what it takes to battle with Max up front? Let us know in the comments below.